Give us a little background of just the plot here of City of Grudges.
All right. It's a small-town newspaper publisher in Pensacola, Florida, named Walker Holmes. Writes a story about his best friend that ends up getting his best friend arrested. He is the town, predictably, his best friend is the town's favorite son. No one wants to believe what Walker has written and his newspapers published. And the only way Walker can redeem himself is for the trial to take place. The morning of the trial, he's sitting in the courthouse, and all the other reporters' phones start going off, they start vibrating, deputy comes over, and his best friend's wife was found dead in her house. And from there, Walker's fighting to prove that his reporting is correct, that he did have the facts, and fight to be sure that the trial takes place in a town that doesn't want him to win.
I mean, so tell us thematically. I mean, what are we dealing with here? Is the difficulty of people, I guess, seeing the truth versus the image they have of individuals or institutions?
Well, I think there are two themes that go with it, Sam. One is the idea of hero worship, is that people do not want their heroes tarnished. Whether it's Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, or the big business leader in the community, people want to they cherish their heroes, and any news that challenges that news becomes fake news. So it runs those two themes. How can you tell the truth and get people to believe facts when they are the facts? When you have this feeling of don't tell me that my hero's not a hero.
Well, what do you think drives that? I mean, why do you think the human condition is such that it's so hard to let go, I guess, of those visions? I mean, I think we're talking Donald Trump. There could be some arguments that there's other things that are going on in the followers, but generally speaking, in terms of people's refusal to let go of, I guess, the projections of other people that they have formulated in their minds.
Well, I think it's a certain amount of the polarization of the country now, and how it's either us or them. So people try to line up behind some strong leader. Even though we consider ourselves a country of individuals, we seem to be in this era where the individual, those that stand out, are the ones who get crushed. I think that there's that sense of wanting to believe in something and overly identifying with that person. People aren't as well read as they once were. They're going to get a snippet of something, and they're going to make an impression. Remember with George W. Bush, the argument for him was he's the kind of guy I want to have a beer with. That was one of the big draws when he was running for president. So we've sort of carried that forward, where we've dumbed down what we expect of our leaderships, and it becomes more of just trying to cling on to something.
All right. So give me an idea of, like, I don't want you to tell any stories out of school here. Maybe you already have, and that's actually the question. What inspired? I mean, how much of this comes? And this is a question I've asked Mike Papantonio, our good friend, who's written a trilogy now, right. Fictional, but a lot of the dynamics, obviously, names are different, and maybe the specifics are different, but the dynamics are very, I think, obviously come from his real life. And you also are a publisher of a local paper in Pensacola. How much more than that is based upon your life experiences, and what is and how closely hewn? Let's put it that way.
Using all the words I know, Sam, I'm going to have to get out the dictionary. I think that this book is really based on my childhood. I grew up in Greenville, Mississippi, where the town was known for two things: cotton and its daily newspaper, the Delta Democrat-Times, which was founded by Harding Carter II. And Harding came out of World War II and was probably the only publisher in Mississippi that was willing to take on Jim Crow laws and segregation. And I grew up, and he won a Pulitzer Prize for his writing. Here's a small-town newspaper winning a Pulitzer Prize for his editorials and willing to take on the status quo. So I grew up in a town where every day people talked about their newspaper, what the editorial was. A lot of people didn't agree with him. So I took that with me when I moved to Pensacola and we started our newspaper. I had that same kind of attitude. I wanted to have a newspaper that challenged the status quo. And over the years, you and I have done a lot of segments back during the BP oil spill. This was a little guy taking on big BP. We've done a lot of stories like that over the years, and we've always believed that a little newspaper can have a big voice. So part of this story is trying to be that the main character is that kind of editor and publisher. He embodies what I see small town journalism being, which is it's a street fight. We have to face the beauty of national mediums and what you're able to do, Sam, is you carry across a whole lot of people. But I have to face the people I write about in the grocery store. I see them on the street. I see them at ballparks and schools. So I have to face them down, whatever I write, on a daily basis. So some of that, all of that energy is carried into City of Grudges, in that it's really, in a small town newspaper trying to do investigative reporting, it's probably some of the hardest thing you can do, other than what Mike Papantonio does in going into a courtroom. But it's you have to face the people you write about on a daily basis, and it gets, even though you want to say it's not personal, it's always going to be personal to the people that you're writing about.
Right. And do you think that, is from your childhood, you have a paper which is writing about Jim Crow laws. What was the perspective of that paper, aside from it being controversial? Was there a certain grudging respect? And then I guess, do you feel like you get that in your hometown?
Well, I hope I do. I think over time, as Harding won awards and the South began to change, I think that the newspaper was a big catalyst for that change. So I think they won. The Carter family won a tremendous amount of respect. Harding's grandchildren lived down the street from me. They're growing up. They were our friends. Of course, Harding Carter the third went on to work with press secretary for Cyrus Vance and the Carter administration. We've stayed close with his children. I think that I try to bring that into here. Hopefully, there's a begrudging respect somewhat. Part of the title, City of Grudges, goes back to the longstanding story in Pensacola, Florida, which is very much a character in the book as anyone else, is that when you cannot figure out why two leaders don't get along, it's going to go back to a grudge from high school. They both tried to date the same girl. It was one of them made football quarterback on the football team, some award. So when you cannot figure it out here, it goes back to there. And then, of course, Pensacola is also, this is where Andrew Jackson was territorial governor. He's the patron saint of Grudges.
I want to take a break, and when we come back, I want to hear more about Pensacola, because I've never been. I'm fascinated with it. I connect to it weekly to do this show, but it seems to be a rather interesting place. And I have to say, too, the idea of those grudges dictating politics decades later is probably too similar to what we see on a national level, and also terrifying. We got to take a quick break. I'm talking to Rick Outzen, who is the author of the newly released City of Grudges, and we'll be right back on Ring of Fire Radio.